So, welcome to Think God, and this is session 11 Freedom. I feel like having a picture of Mel Gibson from the film Braveheart on the screen. Yeah, don't you want your freedom? And Paul says it like this when he addresses the churches in Galatia: It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. It couldn't be clearer than that. Freedom. But what is this freedom? How do we exercise freedom? Why is that part of the blessing and the gift of this new relationship we are discovering in Jesus? It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Now, the whole of Galatians is Paul's frustrating letter to a group of churches who have said yes to the good news of Jesus, but then some other people have turned up with a load of traditional Jewish teaching, and they're sort of saying, oh yeah, you can say yes to Jesus of Nazareth, but also you need to remember these other laws about the Sabbath, about certain male circumcision, about keeping certain festivals. And Paul, who is highly qualified as a Jew, trained as a Pharisee, it says that in Philippians chapter 3, he comes and says, no, no. He actually says, who has bewitched you, you foolish Galatians? His language is incredibly strong. And if we go back to that verse in chapter 5, we'll read the whole of it. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then. Do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. It's a metaphor. But he says, look, we don't want religiosity. We don't want the rules and regulations handed down by the tradition of the elders. In Christ, you are free to love God, free to worship God. You don't need a priest. You don't need a middleman, to use that phrase. You're now free. Now, this freedom isn't as some people would love, the idea of, oh, I'm free to do whatever I like. That sort of freedom doesn't work. Philosophically, it's not a freedom that says, oh, I can do anything I like, because your freedom, when exercised, can't infringe upon someone else's freedom. I'm not free to keep slaves. Can you see how that would not work? Our freedom needs to be exercised with incredible wisdom. And I think it's the greatest gift God ever gave us, and probably the biggest risk he ever took in creation. He wanted to make us free to love, free to care, free to honor others, free to choose his advice. Freedom is healing. We get messed up with all sorts of history in our past. I love it in Romans 8 when Paul celebrates that nothing can separate us from the love of God. And in a sense, that is the emphasis of that passage. He is saying nothing, and then he just lists loads of things. But what's just weird, and I find rather fascinating, is that he says, nothing present, nothing to come, nothing can separate us from the love of God. No, not height, nor depth, nothing. But in saying nothing present and nothing to come, I think it very interesting that he doesn't say nothing past, because often that's what robs us of our healing and our freedom to be free, is the issues of the past, the rules and regulations that other people put upon us, and the fears or anxieties that were stirred up within us because of other situations, the captivity we felt in when we became addicted to different things possibly in our lives. And when people aren't free, when they're not healed, it can be difficult dealing with people. If people have low self-esteem and they're incredibly sensitive of any form of critique, I use that word rather than criticism, because who wants to be criticized? But when we say critique, it can be really damaging on them. or they've got no self-awareness, and they're always trying to impress or be boastful or somehow in their language. They're always trying to, you know, celebrate everything you're saying so they become your best buddy, or whatever the situation is. That's why we need freedom. Because once we understand that we're free in Christ, that brings that healing to our heart, to our mind, to our past, to the desperate need we have to be accepted by others because we are accepted by God. You need to go back to session 6 and go through all the material in session 6 again to understand that we are accepted, that we are secure, and that we are significant. And the things we long to get from others, we have in abundance from God. So freedom is part of our healing. So I said these last few sessions were about how we affect others and bless others. And our personal freedom and how we now choose to use it will bless other people. Because I'm not free to do whatever I like. That's anarchy. But I'm free to love. I'm free to serve. I'm free to give without seeking a reward. True freedom is deeply personal, but never self-centered. True freedom is deeply personal. You've got to own it. You've got to feel it. You've got to sense it. If you still feel the shackles round your wrist, that's not freedom. If you feel restricted, that's not freedom. If someone else is telling you the rules, technically that's not freedom. Freedom as Christ gives it to us, we need to receive it and then be wise in how we start to use it. So as my picture said, true freedom is deeply personal. You've got to own it. You've got to come out of that place of captivity, whatever was holding you captive, whatever someone else's ideology was holding you captive, whether it was some chemical or addiction or, you know, some bad choices that held you captive, some financial problems and debt that held. Once you've come out of that freedom, how are you going to use that freedom? And I suggest that true freedom can never be self-centered. It can never focus on you, because I think that level of freedom will rob other people of their freedom. True freedom is deeply personal, but it's never self-centered. I'm hearing people from the United States, and I got to be careful here because I don't want to be seen as criticizing, but yeah, there are people who don't want to wear face masks because they were born in a free country. Last time I looked, this was a free country. I'm free to do whatever. That's a misunderstanding of freedom. The freedom is the fact that you choose to do that without any cost to yourself because you just want to be thoughtful and sensitive to others. That's true freedom. That you go the extra mile without asking for any reward because you are so whole in yourself that you can go and help other people. So how do we get this freedom? Well, it's ours through Christ. So you receive it by faith. Natural laws exist whether you believe in them or not, whereas spiritual laws need to be activated by faith. So we need to believe that we no longer are restrained by the ideologies that we may well have been brought up with, and trust that in Christ alone we are free to worship God. I think a lot of it's in session 6 again. It's about understanding who we are, our identity in Christ. Once we understand that we're loved by God, that will give us the courage to take risks and have adventures in His kingdom. What holds us back is the constant fear of getting it wrong, the constant sense that someone will judge us, the constant sense that we're trying to look for someone's affirmation or approval. Folks, God affirms you. God approves. You are not disqualified. You are loved. You are cherished. You are free. And in that freedom, you can choose to love others, bless others, honor others, and give to others. Freedom, God's greatest gift and greatest risk. It's ours. Don't give it away. Don't go back into some form of captivity. Don't get held down by someone else's oppression or manipulation. Don't be held down by someone else's rules of what they think is the right thing. Don't become captive to any unhelpful, unhealthy addiction. But enjoy your freedom and let others enjoy your freedom.